gap. It's more fair.
Well, Edoardo Affini with Wout van Aert on his wheel just shut the gap to the two riders at the front. With that. Yeah, it's curious. That's the third time roughly that has happened. Van Aert now on the wheel. Let them do what they like behind. I'm just going to crash. Makes no difference on the wheels of it.
Yeah.
Significantly off the back, that would be a slightly more problematic situation.
Yeah, it's not a moment where you're going to create a breakaway, but in any case, you don't want to make life harder for your leaders. We spotted now a jersey from Alpecin looking around, probably checking where Mathieu is. You see, former winner the class offers like so much different winners, and that's why it comes like to the point where today you have probably 10 or 11 riders who have already won Sanremo. That was very, you know, it's just in recent time because we have, yeah, today we know they're going to be up. It's always been like the very difficult were to race, and because it's always been so unpredictable, it's has been often said like the easiest to lose, you know. Just one moment you miss the race or you do spend a little bit and
brilliant, isn't it? That graphic just great that Van Degenkolb won in the set, yearning to win, but the fact that repeatedly strong classics riders can win both of those races is really because they hardly be more different. This one, we'll know, going to be thinking about for hours. It always comes down to the Cipressa, most significantly the Poggio. There's no other script. Whereas Paris-Roubaix, the race can happen anywhere.
I think like I like in the tactic-wise very clever and very on point, and maybe a little bit cynic to win those two races, you know, to choose the right momentum, because as you said, they're both very different. But in order to score a victory, you need to be very good on reading what's happening in the race. And I think this is
that a slight weakness with Pogacar?
Yeah, because for me, what amazed me of Mathieu, and today doesn't have, Mathieu has this very very rare ability of reading so well the race and being calm when the race explodes. If you look at the last 2 years, he probably attacked once in 2 years to win the race. And if you check how many attacks Pogacar did, I think like probably 20. You know, for Mathieu, he just had one shot and he used it at best. And last year as well, he started the sprint so far from the finish because he sensed that was the moment. You know, he has this ability, Mathieu, to just, you know, do things like just realizing what is the good thing to do in that moment and being very calm, very relaxed mentally. And for me, this explains also the best, probably the best race Mathieu to show what he's able to do is the words that he won in Glasgow. I think that day, in between Van Aert, Pogacar, Pedersen, I think put them together, they went on the attack 30 times during the day. Yeah. And Mathieu, none. Yeah. Just one time, and he dropped everybody. Yeah. And this is something like today doesn't quite have, because I think he's so much stronger than everybody else that he doesn't have to develop these skills, you know. But in Sanremo, where even though he's stronger probably than Mathieu, it's hard to drop him. You need just to fine-tuning this moment where he goes on the attack. 1 year in the Poggio, he attacked just before a hairpin. So it's, you know, it's not the right moment. You just have to do it after. He wants to win this race so badly that sometimes I think it does some mistakes.
It's interesting. But I would imagine, Jacopo, you can't be as clear-sighted, as tactically on point and as lucid as Mathieu van der Poel is in this race, unless physically, physiologically, you're in perfect condition.
Yeah.
Because there's some footage of last year's, the big attack on the Cipressa from Pogacar. The moment that Pogacar goes is almost exactly the same moment that Mathieu van der Poel just goes to the side of the road and takes a bottle. And he did not get panicked by that acceleration on the Cipressa at all. He just was so confident that he could shut the gap.
But that's why Mathieu is probably in the classic the best winning machine. You know, it just combines perfectly body, because he's physically incredibly strong, with his head, with this ability of reading the race and being able to do the right decision at the right moment. And I think this combination makes him like it's a killer. You know, you just have this sense of doing the right things in the right moment. If you think like every time he won Flanders or Roubaix, remember when he won Flanders ahead of, they were the two of them, you know, today and Mathieu, and he waited, and then he launched the sprint exactly when the group behind rejoined them. And Poggi found himself, you know, just closed. He didn't have a gap to go out, and he just lost the sprint. I think Mathieu on this is incredible. And there is another photo, probably you remember, and I think it was the year before, when Today was on the attack and everybody was struggling to hold the wheel, and the only one was, seemed like probably was just because it was the right moment, he had the mouth shut, you know, was Mathieu at the background. Looked like a killer, you know, ready to, you know, to commit his murder.
He's ruthless, isn't he? He's completely ruthless.
But that's the beauty, because also, I mean, it's really thin differences between the two. They're both two champions, but I think they come to, you know, fighting each other, but in a completely different way. Today is just, you know, it's a bottle of champagne. You just bam, you just explode. While Mathieu is more like subtle. He just waits the right moment, you know, to kick in.
It's like two boxers in a boxing ring, and one of them is a lightweight, and the other one is a heavyweight. And the lightweight is just dancing around the boxing ring, just being really nimble and mobile and ducking, but all it takes is one big punch from the heavyweight and it's done. Yeah, it's so fascinating. You're absolutely right. But Tadej Pogacar, in his attempt to win Milan Sanremo, you have to say, Jacopo, if Mathieu van der Poel didn't exist, he would have won it.
Yeah, totally.
He would have won it. But
that's the beauty of it. He exists, so
he does exist.
We are more than happy that we're living in this moment. But
and another thing that I remember, this time last year after the race, we ended up saying to one another is, because Pogacar was close to victory. There was a moment where it hung in the balance whether or not he could drop Van der Poel. It was close. And I remember sort of having these conversations saying, all it requires is for Van der Poel's levels to be like 5 or 10% lower than they are this year, and Pogacar has that victory within his grasp. Yeah. But on everything that we've seen, the evidence of what we've seen so far in 2026, Van der Poel is just as good as he was last year, if not better.
Yeah, both of them actually.
Because, both of them, yeah.
Because of today as well, showed like some great form, and probably had to push a little bit more than expected to win Strade, you know, because he found a real opponent in Seixas. But nonetheless, I think they're both getting better if it's physically possible. You know, year by year, they're getting even better. So it's going to be an even more fascinating battle this year, you know, to what they're going to do.
So another trip to the doctors by the looks of it.
I think there's...
it's a diabetic insulin injection for David Lozano mid-race. And that, I don't think I've seen a Novo Nordisk rider do that on camera before, but that is exactly what this team is all about. Managing their diabetes, type 1 diabetes, improving that with the right treatment and the right approach. Diabetes is not a hindrance to high-level performance, and there's nothing higher in terms of performance than being off the front in a 300-kilometer bike race.
Yeah, this shows, nonetheless, the commitment of those riders, you know, to be up there. And I guess it's not always easy to manage this disease, but it's a good message from the team and the riders. There's a little bit of shining sun is shining back, so it's good for the riders. Probably enjoying a little bit warmer temperature.
Well, at the moment, it's like a reverse Milan Sanremo, because here in Sanremo, it's actually darker than it has been at any point during the day. There's some quite grey clouds overhead now, and Hannah was saying earlier there is a 25% chance of rain.
But I feel like we are in the 80% and or 75% of chances of sunny. So
okay, you're being optimistic.
Yeah, I keep that. I keep that on. I feel like it's gonna be sunny. I got my shades here in case of.
You've got your shades because you're Italian, Jacopo. There's no other
also as well. It comes with the passport. Peloton is still always in a long line. As we said, it was usually the race where you had plenty of time to talk with colleagues. Not anymore, as the whole day, basically, the peloton was quite stretched out. Probably a little bit of side wind during the day, as everybody trying to shelter on the wheels of other riders. As they're now in Tortona. And Tortona is, I can tell you, Ned, Tortona probably is the closest point to 3 region as you can get. It's really where Piemonte, Liguria, and sorry, not Liguria, Emilia, Piemonte, and Lombardia find each other, and it's really on the border of the 3 region.
Well, the breakaway exited the region of Lombardia about 6 kilometers back down the road, and we are now in, as you mentioned, Piemonte. We're in the province of Alessandria, heading through Tortona. Of course, the city of Tortona gives its name, doesn't it, to the small hills, which are an outspur of the Apennines, the Colli Torinesi.
This I didn't know. It's now we're getting closer to the Apennine. Is going to be the first hills are going to appear soon, although the riders going to stay basically on flat roads as they are now, getting more into the valley. As we're going to start actually gentle climbing from Ovada on, heading to Mazone and then to Kino, but we're still quite some kilometer from there, roughly 40 kilometers before the first percentage of this Milan Sanremo start to kick in for the riders. As we see what left of the Castello di Tortona. Not much, as you can see, unfortunately.
No, just a useful tower to put some mobile phone technology at the top.
It was the highest point, probably.
In the 12th century. 12th century telephone equipment. There we go, the Stadio Fausto Coppi. Outdoor velodrome, by the looks of it, with a football pitch in the middle.
Yeah, this is the area of Fausto Coppi. Was, as you see on the screen, was born in Tortona, and then he lived, I think, most of his life in Novi Ligure, where the rider going to be soon going to approach the town of Novi Ligure. Despite the name, Ligure means from Liguria, it's in Piemonte.
Fausto Coppi, yeah, he was born in Tortona. Coppi.
And Coppi for Italians, you know, is still like synonymous of cyclist. You know, like if somebody jokingly tells you that you're a cyclist, what are you, a Coppi? It's part of the culture and the heritage of Italy and cycling culture. As Didier keep doing what he do at best and leading the peloton, followed by Affini, which is not collaborating at the moment, and then behind Conor Swift from Ineos Grenadiers. So we are at the back of the peloton here.
Looks like the peloton is all back together again for now. We await the next time that Sylvain Dillier will find himself off the front. It's happened 3 times already. Look at the cathedral. Again, another cathedral dedicated to the memory of St. Lawrence from this area. If you watch Milan Sanremo at this stage of the race every year, a lot of these landmark buildings and this architecture in these cities will be very, very familiar to you. It's an annual pilgrimage that we all take, I think.
Back on the image with the breakaway. Still evenly collaborate as the gap is, as you see, never been much bigger than 3:35. As we know, 2:45, but we could expect that it's going to stay on about this 3 minutes for most of the time as they're approaching feeding zone, getting some bottles and food from the side of the roads. Later on, there's going to be a fixed feeding zone with the musette. Normally, it's the first big one is in right after Ovada, and the second one on the coastline, roughly around Savona. But some of them are getting a musette, we know. So for a Proust, getting a full musette of food and bidons.
Peloton making its way safely across this river. It was actually just approaching the bridge over the River Po where the incident occurred involving Jan Christen and Aular of Movistar. As they skirt now around the industrial outskirts, the industrial estates in south of Tortona, and on their way. You can see by the number of race vehicles that there are parked up at the side of the road. On a race of this distance, it's a real logistical problem that the teams have to think through to make sure that all the soigneurs cars and those responsible for manning the feed zones, and there are many, many feed zones in a race of this distance, that they get round the race, that they get ahead of the race, and they have to figure out days in advance how they're going to approach that logistical side of managing a race of 300 kilometers.
Yeah, indeed. As you know, the race basically is just follow what is the path of the highway. So usually the team cars just go on the highway, but it's not much faster than the normal road because most of the highway, in Liguria are built either in a tunnel or on a bridge. Often there are a lot of road works. Myself yesterday coming to the auto was stuck for quite a long time. So sometimes the teams are in a rush, to being able to give out bidons on all the points of the race. It's not easy, as you said. I think as much as feeding has become like a vital point for the riders to perform, the logistic behind it from the teams in order to give out bidons and musette and supply the riders with the correct food has become much more difficult than it was in the past, because the riders expect to have bidons on the side of the road, and because, as you imagine, getting bidons from the car behind it might take a lot of energy. As we see now, Decathlon CMA getting bidon as well. Conor Swift getting rid of his vest. Dauphin as well.
Might need that vest back at some point, because as you mentioned, Jacopo, bit by bit, just very gradually now they're starting to go uphill as they go about the long, slow approach to the Passo del Torquino, which peaks out at over 500 meters and then drops down. It's a very steep descent, actually, down to the coast after the Torquino climb. But the passage up to the top of the climb is very, very gradual indeed. And really, it's only in the last few kilometers where it becomes anything that looks like a climb.
Yeah, it's basically the last couple of kilometers, roughly a 5%, but with the speed that the riders are climbing now, I don't want to say not going to feel that much. It's with this kind of temperature and dry roads, not going to be a problem approaching the descent. And often they talk about like some teams might be willing to make things harder on the Torquino. I think it's quite unrealistic. It's very far from the finish, and sometimes we see splits in the descent because it's very twisty. From this side of Italy, they're in Pianura Padana, but they're quite higher compared to the seaside. So if the climbs is actually not much in terms of how hard it is, but the descent is quite steep and twisty and long. As this clear landmark we see now from
Yeah.
On the images is very famous net because, as you see, there is a highway right behind, and often here is a foggy area, but that statue stands above the clouds usually. So when you're coming back, and it's quite lighting up at night. So when you're coming back driving from the seaside, you just see it from far. You know, it's a famous sign of the area around Tortona.
Yeah, it's like the Madonna della Guardia, and it's actually she's a huge Madonna and Child, isn't she? Absolutely disproportionately big for the size of the church, but a real visible landmark. Added actually in the 20th century, so not particularly old. Now the riders have got themselves all back together again, still sharing the work. They're not losing time, they're not gaining time either. It's just a solid, steady state at the moment. And they will certainly get over the top of the Torquino Pass with something of an advantage, probably a similar advantage, maybe a little bit less. And they'll hold that advantage for probably another 2 or 3 hours of this race. It's that long.
Yeah, it's quite unrealistic expecting them to be up front after the Cipressa. So usually the breakaway is going to be caught during the Capi or at worst right before the Cipressa. So it's always the moment where the peloton getting closer and closer to the breakaway. They live in the moment of glory, but it's still a long way for all of them and the peloton as well. So now, what do you think of the Polti Visit Malta jersey? Do you like it?
I mean, if I'm honest, I like it when cycling teams pay respect to their past and actually remind people of what it used to be like. But do I like it? I mean, if I'm honest, yellow shorts. So I'm edging towards giving you an answer, and I think the answer is no, I don't like it very much.
Okay. I think with a full black bits will be better.
I think so. I think it's
the jersey's cool.
The jersey's cool. Maybe it's just the full yellow on the shorts as well. It's just a little bit too much for me.
Yeah. And for those who doesn't know, this is they share a sponsor, which is Polti. You know, with a very famous, at least in Italy, Italian team back in the days, back in the 90s. There was Team Polti. They won. If some of you definitely will remember when Pantani was in the lead of the Giro and then he was disqualified. Ivan Gotti from Polti won the race, and we go back in the late 90s for this team, and it was a famous color when the taste and the beauty of the cycling kit were not yet on point.
Just different times. They were different times.
Yeah. I think from the 80s, usually like when we talk about culture, like like everybody dislike the 80s for the type of culture, but I found like cycling kit of the 80s were cooler than the 90s. That's my point of view.
But I think that's just the way things happen. I think that in the moment you don't appreciate what you've got. You think it's horrible, and then decades later you look back and you think actually that was quite cool.
Yeah, not the 90s though. Not the 90s. The Banesto,
just wait.
I have to wait.
It'll become fashionable.
Okay.
Polti were still are a coffee. They make coffee machines. Is that right? Is it?
No, I think the
vacuum cleaners. That's right.
I think the vacuum. You're making how do you say it? Confusing with Saeco probably.
Yes,
Saeco,
that's true. They're a coffee machine brand. Aren't they?
It was the time where, now it's Italian cycling in a moment where there is no World Tour team. Back in the days, there was plenty of. Now they're living with the glory of Team Polti, although technically they with a Maltese license as the name, Visit Malta, and the only Italian team as we see now in this bright blue, light blue is Bardiani. So not much left of the Italian movement, despite having so much riders spread in between all the teams.
Well, amazingly, we're approaching a third of the way through Milan Sanremo already, getting closer to that moment. Certainly, we have left behind the first of the Italian regions. We're in the middle region, Piemonte. Won't be in Piemonte for a huge amount of time either, because with 163 kilometers to go, we pass into Liguria and remain in Liguria until the very end of the race as Eduardo Affini finds himself with Mauro Schmidt and is that Gosschartner and Tadej Pogacar on his wheel.
It's always curious to see some different approach of layering of clothing. You know, today is already race ready compared to others. You know, still wearing the vest or something else. If you already look at the Gosschartner, having much more clothing than today.
Well, we've had so far in 2026, we have had a very extreme example, haven't we, of confusion with clothing with Jonas Vingegaard at Paris-Nice. I don't know if you saw that stage. That one of the coldest days in a cold race, Paris-Nice, and
it was stylish though.
He pulled on 2 pairs of bib shorts, which is something I've literally never seen any rider do before.
I saw the article, like he was explaining what was he meant to take off those pants, but to be fair, I didn't understand. I think if I understood properly, like there were 2 dedicated teammates supposed to tear it apart, you know, by just pulling it, but he didn't manage. He didn't have time. but the image at the finish line, it was good. It was good.
Jonas Vingegaard appears to be in excellent form, though, which is, I think, good for bike racing. And, of course, scheduled to race the Giro d'Italia for the first time as well. It should be fascinating.
Yeah, starting the Giro is probably the favorite for the final classification, but it's going to be interesting. You know, it's he already won the Tour de France a couple of times, and he might be having in mind to complete the 3 Grand Tours. You know, winning the Giro and the Vuelta as well.
Well, it's a very select club of riders who've done that, isn't it?
Yeah, I think no more than 15 riders, probably.
Yeah. And again, that's an achievement that Tadej Pogacar is yet to collect, although it feels completely inevitable that Tadej Pogacar will win the Vuelta at some point.
Yeah, it's just the moment when he decided he's going to participate to the Vuelta, seems like, at this point, no?
A little bit. But I think as we look at Dom, I think possibly to have done a bit of work already, but he hasn't yet been called upon. We'll see Dom back. Get onto the front rear. Show themselves.
This the last years to see that they haven't been collaborating with Alpecin on the chase of this breakaway, but in a sense is a reason, I guess, as we said, like for us defense losing Jan Christian in the early crash and saving a little bit the energy of your teammates. Be very they're going to decide it's time to prop things up, but with the car is going to be probably the
speed of 5 kilometers so far. 2 hours of racing done or thereabouts. Pinarello Q36.5 have placed the rider up towards the front as well, just to show their presence there. I think we'll also see UAE Team Emirates be much more visible at the top, you know, won't regret, but will need Tadej Pogacar because editions of Milan Sanremo when it's wet, it is actually quite a difficult descent.
Past present a lot of switchbacks, so crashes, nothing serious, but just losing grip on a corner. So in order for him to be out of any kind of trouble, I think they're gonna try. This was open a bigger tunnel on the top. There is a little tunnel on the, and in the past it was not linear. There was I think it's big of now it's and
as it goes, you're puncturing top of the close to the top of the Torquino Pass, and then having to chase back on the. Uber Alaphilippe taking risks everywhere.
Yeah, it's a bit of an artist of riding a bike. You know, it's a fine rider, former winners. Yeah. Would be curious if he's gonna have a different, you know, on the climb. So it's gonna be interesting. His approach different to those teams, Pinarello or Cofidis that didn't, and rather Cardinale. So it's going to be interesting. They have Trentini rider, you know, very, I think many times was in the top 10. Rick Plumers. Yep. You know, it's a fast rider from Netherlands. A good climber. It's very fast. And so team of favorite, but Tudor.
In the valley, even though they are heading towards the hills. Its record overall, and so good, you know. And before that, in 2017, and as recently as 2024, he was 9th. So he's placed 10th occasion winning the race.
Prost, the French for the SM picnic personnel. It's a mistake very often. Picnic personnel. It's a mistake. Sure.
Quite busy race.
Trouble as a medicament, so
more than that, they can do, you know, they can do bandaging, or if a rider's got cuts and bruises and disinfectants, and but it's other than that, it's very basic what they can do.
Yeah, it's so basically some pink, or maybe if you have some stomach disease, you know, yeah.
And you're also, as he's demonstrating there, you're authorized in the race to hold on to this car.
Yeah, but is thing keep always like kind of a gray, you know, area where, you know, what can I do or not do? It's in this moment, I think like the general rule is like, does it impact the outcome of the race? In this case, obviously not. So yep, coming back to one any fine or whatsoever. See, a lot of people on the side of the roads every time we're crossing a village in today's race. This a tradition for those villages as the parkour in such a village. Somebody getting married with the carabiniere here. So they won't be looking at race. It's a photo shooting moment now.
I wonder if they know that they're on television. Not a bad souvenir for their wedding day, is it? Personal helicopter. That would cost you
Exactly.
a few quid if you had to organise that for your own wedding.
Back with the peloton, with the usual image of Sylvain Dillier doing his own job, and the peloton followed by Lankard.
Yeah. And then Donovan from Pinarello Q36.5. Still up there. Hasn't actually worked on the front. It's all Dillier at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's going to be same situation, but it is going to disappear in the approach of Turquino because the increased stress in the peloton is also a moment, you know, the roads will get a little bit narrower. I don't want to say narrow. It's still like a two-car but a bit left and right, more team in a good position in order to save energy. So it might be the case that, you know, resting as much as he could for a few kilometers before coming back in the front after the Turquino, you know, once into Genova, which technically they're not really into Genova, a little bit on the side. But from there on, it's going to be on the coastline.
Well, this is a fascinating bit of history, isn't it? I definitely didn't know this. The great Costante Girardengo attacking with 200 kilometers to go to win one of his 6 editions of Milan Sanremo. That's quite something, isn't it? Even Tadej Pogacar would think twice about that.
Yeah, if Costante, I think he felt it was the right moment. He saw the opponents were in a struggle at the moment.
He was racing in an era that was where you can't really compare it. Where you can't compare it with the modern era. The only similarity it has is they rode bicycles, and they started in Milan and finished in Sanremo.
Yeah.
Other than that, the rules, the way it functioned, was completely different.
Yeah, I think like as every sport is always going up, you know, into professionality and being more scientific, and cycling definitely is it's not immune to that, obviously. With the camera, with the marking the crash.
Yeah, just one day of racing so far. In 2020 race, either crashing, fracturing his left wrist, and fracturing a collarbone as well. Probably of those injury risks, the more serious.
He was able to racing